Me and a few other top players recently started a podcast called the Boca Nation Podcast with Ice, Bagel, and Biscuit. The full first episode as well as snippets from this episode are on Bagel and Ice's channels. Check them out in the description. But with that out of the way, today's topic is on supports and support specials in Splatoon 3, so let's get started. Alright, I have so much to say about this. So, finally, support players get to do something instead of pressing a button for armor and that's it. So, I of course play range blasters like my primary weapon, but I also play weapons that are a bit more supportive, and I like playing support. Like, I have a lot of experience in the support role, and I really like support. It's something I play even in other games. I like the support category. And support in Splatoon is terrible. I'm just gonna say it. Support in Splatoon 2 is awful. There are very few actually good support weapons. All of them are shooters, H3, Junior, and Zap. And most importantly, all of them have these garbage special design. You either have missiles, which gives you some amount of control, but is still very one and done global special, and you have armor, which is just press the button at the right time. There's not a lot of supports in Splatoon 2, and there's a lot of stereotypes of supports are useless, it's a 3v4, support players aren't good, or blah 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 blah. And I think a lot of that comes from the ability that supports do not get a way to properly express their skill that often, because the main way you do is by pairing with people, which is very limited with some weapons in this game, and B, the specials, which has no form of skill expression in this game at all for either of the support specials. They don't. So, the vacuum, the bubble shield are the main two supportive specials. You can throw whale in there maybe, but bubble and vacuum are the main new supportive specials, and they seem way better, and I personally think it's a step up.
I definitely like, for example, your comment on the tweet, like good positioning and being in your teammates and good habits. I do think that's definitely good, and I definitely agree with you there. However, I don't exactly agree with you get to do something instead of pressing a button for armor, because if your main reason you're picking that weapon is for those specials and like getting that special, it's kind of the same problem. And I feel like that's not inherently bad, because the main thing in my opinion a support player is supposed to do is definitely help your teammates in fights, paint your teammates' feet so they can perfectly run away, and position yourself in good spots so that way you can help your teammates either run away or fight, as well as timing your specials good. The specials definitely are a step up more because they're not global specials like you say, and I think global specials are just in general bad for the game design. So I definitely do think that it is better in a sense where, like, yeah, you can't just use ink vacuum like from your spawn, for example, or like outside of the fight and have the same amount of value as like being in the fight with your teammates mid-fight and stuff like that. So I definitely do agree with that. I still think though that like you're going to mainly focus on the special for support weapons. Like it's still going to be like, okay, if we need this special, like what's the best support weapon for this special? And a lot of the time I still feel like it's going to be, okay, do you have ink vacuum ready? Yes or no? And if you do, then that completely changes how you go into the next engagement.
I mean, yeah, that's true, and I'm not trying to say that supports won't be playing around their special a lot, but I think my point is more like, instead of, okay, you gotta have this special ready and press it, it's, okay, you also have to be near someone, you have to use the vacuum properly, you have to get it at a full charge, and then you have to take advantage of the shot at the end. Like, you can see there's so much more room for making a play with it that still involves primarily protecting and helping your team. And I think the bubble shield is the same thing.
It puts focus on like the individual player, then rather like, oh, now they have armor. Because now it's like, okay, to the person that used the ink vacuum use it really, really well. And then I think that's going to have more of an emphasis on like what defines a good support player versus like someone who, I guess the equivalent would be just to paint the entire map and spam armor in Splatoon 2, right? So I do think that's definitely a step in the right direction.
Yeah, like it's more of a skill expression, like I tried to say, or raising the skill ceiling for supports. And I think specials are not the only problem. I'll talk about the others a bit later, but while we're on it, I think specials are one of the main problems because, like I mentioned in the tweet that you brought up as well, they're not intuitive either. Like, they don't teach good positioning because you can use them in their global specials, which means you have people who missile and spawn. You see it all the time if you play solo. You'll have people who missile and spawn or armor 5 years away from the team fight. But in this game, both specials are very positioning based. Like, you have to be near teammates in order to get value from them or in a key position of the map. And I like that because that means we're now intuitively teaching people that if you want to be supported, you have to be near your team. So I think this means people can improve and get better, and it tells them they're doing better easier. I think this means improving at this role and visualizing your own impact gets easier in terms of specials, and I think that's very, very important.
I agree, like, cause I feel like global specials kind of just ruin the game. You just stay in spawn, do your special, whatever. So for a lot of supports, they don't really have like a chance to like shine. Like maybe sometimes in fights, but like usually as a support player, you aren't really doing much.
Because you don't want to die, so you can't do.
Yeah,
like
you
want to
don't-
help
you
in
don't wanna
fights, but
die.
there's only some extent you're going to be doing in fights without feeding.
Yeah,
It'll be
like
really passive compared to I feel like in Splatoon 3 where these specials are get to be up and close and personal. Then it's more interactive for support players at least.
I just personally really like it. I think it teaches people, and I think it gives more playmaking power. And supports need that. That's part of what makes support not feel fun to me. And I play support, I want to paint, and I can still help my team, but I want to have a point where I get to be the playmaker. I still want to do the cool thing. And there's a problem with support in other games, not just Splatoon, but like, let supports be the playmaker for a little bit. Give them something to do where they're the center of attention without turning them into slayers. This is still a support play, and you get rewarded for supporting your team with these kind of specials.
I just have one thing to say.
Yeah.
Have we seen any actual support weapon with these specials yet?
We have seen Charger and Roller are the only two.
And none of those are considered support weapons.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess that's another point.
I'm just saying, like, they're support specials, but like, unless we see actual support weapons, like high painting weapons that might not be that good at killing, get these specials, I
mean,
think it's
We just
it's not
haven't
really
seen those weapons yet. Like
I mean,
don't
we've
think
only seen one
weird,
weapon with each of these.
But like,
anything.
don't know if Nintendo is going to give weapons that could use that special the best. That special.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, I mean, on that topic, I guess it brings up a good point. I think this is also, support specials do not have to be on support weapons, and they can still function. Like, if I'm a backline with Charge, I have to become a support if I play this kid. When I use my special, I still have to be a support in some aspects. So I think this is a way where, yeah, support might not be as well defined as it is in Splatoon 2, because the weapons with vacuum, like, maybe there'll be some weapons that get vacuum more often, but there also might be a weapon that doesn't get it a lot, and still has to play around that special. So I think there could be times where you don't run a traditional support weapon, but you still have a support special. And I honestly think that's kind of a positive. Like, it lets weapons experiment more with their playstyle. Like, yeah, I'm a roller who goes in a lot with curling, but maybe sometimes I can roll back to my team and set up a bubble in mid. Or I'm a charger, but I can go near people and protect them instead of always sniping. So it lets weapons expand on their playstyle a bit more. And
It's
roles in this
definitely more
game,
creative.
roles in this game have never been like a defined thing.
I don't think it's that far as you're saying. I think there are still, for example, a T-Tech player is not going to be a support player. The only way that happens is if you have two other weapons that are like vastly more aggressive or way better at killing them.
Okay.
Like K-Shot in this game, for example, it's support because of its kit. I think weapons themselves have still been classified as roles. I just feel like this game's doing a better job of mixing those roles more. So like an anchor player, like you said, if you're a charger, you're not going to be behind your team the entire fight, or like very far behind with where you could have been with Stingray and Bomb Rush, but now you're going to be more of an anchor support type player because you're going to support your team with your special, and when you don't have it, you can still be an anchor.
So we talked about the specials, which is obviously the main part, but I kind of want to expand this topic to support as a whole, and I want to bring up two other things, which is sub-weapon and main weapon balance for support. I think both are problematic. Main weapon balance is a bit simpler. I would like to see other classes that aren't shooters be good supports. Like, I would love Blob with the vacuum, for example. Let Blob be more of a support with the staple special. Let Dynamo be better, please. Make maybe a different brush that could be more supportive, like a heavy brush, for example. Let's have other weapon classes with support specials or support attributes, so that if I want to be a support player, I want to be able to play other support weapons. Like, why don't we make Undercover or a new Brella actually built to be a support Brella, not a Slayer Brella they gave armor to because they gave up on balancing it? I want other support weapons that are built with the idea of being more supportive in mind in other weapon classes.
I definitely do agree with you that like there should be more balancing in terms of like one supportive weapon should not outshine the other supportive weapons, and that there should be different weapons that can, like, depending on your kit, like, yeah, you have the same main weapon, but then the way you play the game based on your kit and what you want to do for your team, like, your role is different. However, with games like Splatoon, I feel like no matter how well they do with balancing from a competitive standpoint, I feel like there's always going to be a meta, and there's always going to be supportive weapons and weapons in general that are going to be frowned upon. Because, for example, if Dynamo gets its changes reverted back, like, it paints a ton more now, it actually paints the entire ground, it has good damage scaling, it has good ink management. At the end of the day, I feel like you're still going to inevitably have complaints where it's like, why are you picking Dynamo as a roller when you can pick Zap, for example? I think that's inevitable with the game, that there's going to be criticism about the meta regardless of what the meta is. But I think the main focus should be on making other stuff just as viable, even if it might not be first pick, which I think is what you want as well.
Yeah, that's fair. Like, to me, I look at Frontline, I see there are Frontlines that are their own different things and are still really good. Like, not shreds at a distance, Squelcher has mobility, blasters can peek around corners, buckets have their angles and stuff. Like, a lot of Frontlines can do their own things, and I just want supports like that. Like, Dynamo can paint well over a distance, or Barella has a bit of tanking capabilities in paint. A good amount of supports that have their own strengths and weaknesses, and yes, some might be better than others, but there are more overall viable and easy to use options, so that it's easier to build. Hey, maybe I want a comp built around a Dynamo for support instead of built around a Junior or built around an Undercover, and we have more survivability. Something like that is what I want to see.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the main problem was that in Splatoon 2, it wasn't really like a good environment for those types of weapons. It was only just shooters because they can paint more, they can kill more, they can get more
They deal with the
specials.
specials, really. Like, shooters
Yeah.
deal with specials better. And that's why I think this could be cool, because not only are these specials more playmaking, but these aren't specials where it's like you want a shooter, they're more fightable. So stuff like Blaster can hit around vacuum or shoot someone out of the crab tank. I think more main weapons could be good at dealing with specials, and that could lead to better main weapon diversity. So I wanted to say one more thing about supports. Sub-weapons is something I would also like to be improved. Every support basically needs a bomb right now. Sprinkler has been gutted. Disruptor got turned into Toxic Mist, which while not useless, is like almost never something you want on a support. There are so few utility subs that are actually good on support weapons that aren't bombs. I would love to see something like a Toxic Mist, but if you hit them directly, it can act like Disruptor. Let me have that kind of playmaking, and that gives me more things to do as a support weapon or for other weapons to be supportive. I want there to be good support subs in the game, not just bombs, because I think everything is so dependent on you want to have a bomb if you're a support. But I would love it to be like, yeah, setting up a Sprinkler is actually threatening long term. Like, I want more subs as well that give both playmaking power or just more options that aren't bombs in the same way of main weapon diversity.
Bombs and stuff are really just a big part of support as well. So having more subs that can do more things other than just paint will probably just be beneficial for supports and just be overall just more fun to play the role.
I think the supportive specials are a great step in the right direction as a whole for the role. I think they do a lot and it's nice. However, I think there are other things that need to be toned as well. Like, we need better main weapon balance for supports. We need more support subs. So there's still work to be done with making this role an actual full-fleshed role. But if the specials are anything to indicate, I'm really looking forward to it, and I can't wait to try it out in the third game. Thanks for watching, guys.